In 1969, in collaboration with several other brands, TAG Heuer launched one of the first automatic chronographs. Heuer launched it in, among others, a new watch with a square and iconic shape, the Monaco. With its square case, it immediately stood out of the crowd, not saying that it immediately became very successful. To become successful, it needed the charm of Mr. Cool himself, Steve McQueen. After being discontinued for several years, TAG Heuer relaunched the Monaco in the year 2000. And I can vividly remember that time as I was just getting into watches. I saw classic advertisements of that watch everywhere, and I desperately wanted one. This year in 2019, TAG Heuer is celebrating 50 years of that icon. It's a good time to have a look back at 50 years of Monaco.
This year we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Monaco, but actually we should celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Calibre 11 that was launched in '69. The Calibre 11 is the first wrist chronograph movement with a rewinding system, a very clever one with a micro rotor. To feature this Calibre 11, TAG Heuer decided to place it in the bestseller collection of that time, the Carrera and the Ottavia, but he wanted a third model and he wanted it to be completely different. This is why that when he was offered the square case that was also waterproof by Picret, he decided to go for it as the third one. To complete the design, he decided that he did not want a black or a silver dial, but another color. And he picked the blue, a very specific blue for the first execution of the Monaco, a little bit of metallic and very deep. And he also developed a dark gray one. With that, he had a full offer, the Carrera that embodied the elegance, the Ottavia that embodied the motor racing, and the Monaco that embodied avant-garde.
For me, the Monaco is just a really amazing design. When you look at the watch, and when you look at this fantastic square case, it was such a new avant-garde design. And I think for me it changes totally the world of watches. It was avant-garde, it was new, it was cool. And still today it aged fantastically. You can wear it today, nobody says it's out of fashion. Look at it, how beautiful these lines are. And I think personally the most pleasing watch for me is the blue dial Monaco. The one which is known now as Steve McQueen Monaco. It has a fantastic blue dial.
The plan did not just go as Jack had thought. The Monaco didn't sell well, it was probably much too avant-garde. So when his property master from Hollywood, Don Nunley, called him on a Wednesday 1970 to get some pieces for an incredible movie that was filmed in Le Mans, asking for some wrist chronograph and some timekeeping devices, he had plenty of Monaco to share with him. And this film, as you might have guessed, this is Le Mans, featuring Steve McQueen, the pure racing film. So Jack was completely excited by that idea. The time frame was very, very short, so he sent one of his best watchmaker, who was also an official timekeeper for motor races. This one picked one Carrera, one Ottavia, because the stock was very low because of the good sales, and he picked 6 Monacos because they were not selling good at all. And then he added some dashboard devices and some stopwatches also. Steve McQueen ended up with a Monaco on the wrist, First, because he thought that the piece was cooler than the usual Carrera and Ottavia that was more standard. And second, because as 6 were brought, the guy who was doing the filming said this is better because then we can keep one for close-ups, we can keep one for PR, we can keep one in case of damage, etc., etc. In terms of image, we all agree that McQueen having a blue Monaco on the right wrist, matching his blue eyes and the Heuer patch on the shoulder is just a perfect image. It's like the two legends built their own story together and that matured during the 70s and the 80s to really get birth in the 90s. The first chapter of the Monaco started in '69, as I explained, and it ended up by the end of the 70s. So it's a pretty short life with some very interesting features, like the case remained the same all along this period, the square one with the waterproofness, and the colors remain the same, blue and gray. The only exception is a full black version nicknamed the Dark Lord, that is also one of the holy grails for the collectors, and that was part of the black trend in the second half of the 70s. The number of references of the Monaco is rather short. You have the automatic ones featuring the Calibre 11 and the Calibre 15 and the manual ones. The main difference between the automatic and the manual versions, except the movement, aesthetically, is that the crown, instead of being on the left side for the automatic ones, is on the right side as a standard chronograph for the manual winding ones. And by the end of the 70s, no more Monaco were sold, none appears in the catalogs of this period of time, and it is a blank during 20 years. It came back in '98, and what is quite interesting is that when TAG Heuer decided to re-edit the Monacos, it did not copy-paste the original one, the 1130B that Steve McQueen was wearing, but it reinterpreted the codes. So we kept the scale shape, we kept the square shape of the sub-counters, but the pushes and the crown are on the right side, and it is the black dial that was the hero watch of the new Relaunch. That is quite interesting as a reinterpretation process, as a re-edition vintage watch. At the very beginning, on the 3rd of March '69, TAG Heuer launched it as the Avant-garde timepiece. And this is what we kept. We kept the square shape and the avant-garde spirit of the Monaco. This is how were developed so many incredible watch concepts during the years 2000 and 2010s around the Monaco. You got the Monaco 69, that is a flip version with an electronic side and an analogic side. You got the Monaco 24, that is a floating dial and movement with shock absorbers in the corners to highlight the technology of the watch. You have the Monaco LS with a linear second display, that is also a striking one, and of course the queen of all that is the Monaco V4 that was developed in and launched in 2004 during Baselworld as a concept watch. This is a watch and not a chronograph, that is also a first for the Monaco, but the movement is absolutely amazing because it is driven by belts instead of wheels, instead of regular gears.
And here we are 50 years later, and we wanted to commemorate that astonishing feat, not only, but also one of the most unique timepieces ever designed. And thinking about the project, we were trying to figure out what would be the best way to do that. And we decided that rather than relaunch a commemorative piece or launch a new Monaco, maybe the best thing to do would be to show the Monaco traveling through time from 1969 through to 2019 and possibly showing the way forward for Monaco. So we decided, rather than having one 50-year anniversary piece, we decided to do 5 of them, 1 per decade. And the design of each watch is influenced graphically, the way the dial is designed, buy products from each decade in the Heuer and then TAG Heuer brand. And secondly, by the color schemes, which were clearly a part of each decade. So if you go back to the first one, the 1969 to 1979 model, we have a dark green, which is highlighted by mustard yellow and some burnt orange, which were quite typical colors of that time period, also found on race cars. If you go into the 80s, you'll find a deep red, and you'll obviously be able to figure out the connection with lots of sports cars from those years, but also with the race cars, which carried the Heuer logo. Moving forward, you'll see that we're moving away from color down to a medium gray on the 90s model, highlighted with some blue and red. And here we're starting to get more graphical, more in tune with the 90s design ethic. Continuing through the 2000s model, again with a circle and square design, but in this case with a black dial and a much stronger white circle. And here we're getting very close to the 2000s, to more modern expression of design, more crisp lines. And following through to the 2009 to 2019 model, where we have a black on black dial, where we have a sandblasted metal case, and here we're really approaching 2020s product design codes. So you can see, if you travel back to 1969 and come all the way through, you'll see that the Monacos followed each decade, and we have a sort of clear path from the past to the present.